And we are back, folks, for another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. An exciting month already underway in momentum. Momentum, folks, is a consistent thing in the world of recruiting. We talked to you about it a few weeks ago. We said Michigan just needs to get the ball rolling. They'll get one recruit, and it's funny how that happens. One begets two, two begets three, and you see how that has happened for the Maize and Blue, as now they seem to be on a roll. Mr. Brice Marich, as the Wolverines are starting to rake them in as official visits pile up. The buzz has really started to go, and they're embarking upon what they call Victor's Weekend, where not only some of the marquee recruits are coming to town, but a lot of the commitments are coming to town and coming back to town as well to help them maybe close things out with a bang. So big time recruiting weekend on tap. And we'll also bring in Steve Lorenz to the stage. Steve, how you doing as well? Let's get the formalities out of the way. First of all, Mr. Brice Marich, how you doing?
Solid. It's been a constant, Sam, as you know, back and forth day. Running from studio to this to that. So it's been active for sure.
Yeah, and Steve Lorenz, how are you today?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. It's been a whirlwind day. We started off the day with Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel in studio, disappointed some Buckeyes who were looking for a hammer to drop. No hammer droppers on the horizon to disappoint those Buckeyes out there, right? They're looking, they're parsing the body language. They're saying, "Oh, he's looking off to the left. There must still be a hammer on the horizon." No hammer on the horizon, Buckeyes. And they're still out there dreaming those dreams. Unfortunately, they're dashed. They're gonna have to look for someone to come save their asses some other kind of way, Mr. Marich. In the meantime, in between time, looking for the Wolverines to maybe continue to have some success on the recruiting trail. As you have seen, last couple of weeks have really got some things going. Markel Blade, he has gone on to commit to the Wolverines. Mr. Alistair Vallejo, who we'll talk about. Man, you talk about a dude who excites as far as the recruiting rankings have started to show. Puts us a lot in the mind. And Brice, we didn't talk about it as much on the last episode, but we can get into it a little bit into this episode. Kind of reminds us of a guy that we went out to see on the recruiting trail a few years back, one Mr. Mason Graham.
Yeah. Alistair Vallejo, 6'3", 310 pounds. Ironically, if you look at his ranking, you're probably thinking this guy's not underappreciated. He's ranked pretty high. But if you look at his ranking from a while back, from the latest update, he was, I want to say, in the 500, 600 range. I think at one point he wasn't even ranked. Like, we had to submit a ranking for this kid. A freak in nature. You watch his film, and I remember I showed you, Sam, his film in the studio after he was getting close to deciding between Kansas and Notre Dame. And you're like, I just looked at you and you're like, Mason Graham. Like, it just popped in your head. Like, that's who he reminds me of. And it makes sense because you saw Lou Esposito made him such a huge priority. I think this guy, this is just my opinion, top 100 talent. I remember when you talked about Jair Hill, and you were like, regardless of what he was ranked, this is how I feel about him. That's the same sentiment I feel of, Vallejo. I just think he's that type of talent. He's that good. I know a big thing with Mason Graham was he was in the Trinity League. So he was playing some modern days and different type of, competition. But at the same point, it's not like Alistair Vallejo is playing some scrubs, right? He's playing in, I think, the second highest classification in Texas. So he's still playing pretty good competition as well. Again, I think he's got a 6'6" wingspan. This guy can move. He's agile. And the biggest thing when I watch his tape, Sam, is that first step. it's that twitch. It's that explosiveness that you don't see from normal guys at 6'3", 310 pounds. I'm a huge fan of him, regardless of ranking, regardless of who they land in this cycle. He's going to be one of my favorites. I think that's going to be the same for many fans as well.
Well, Steve Lorenz, one of my favorites in this class, not this Michigan class, but in the class of 2026, is a young man who made it by the studio. And that's been one of the great things about this cycle is we have really utilized the studio to the nth degree. We've amped it up, and I think we've had over 60 guys in studio. And one of the first guys to make it to the studio was Travis Johnson, from Oscar Smith, Chesapeake, Virginia. When he walked through the door, I remember thinking, man, this is what they're supposed to look like. This is what you're supposed to. You talk about big time receivers. Yeah, this is what you want. Guys who can, when you're talking about getting in and being that big time, big play wideout that can take in Moss guys, he can do that. When you want a guy who can be a big time deep threat, he can do that too. When you're talking about you try to press him at the line of scrimmage, he can take care of business in that way. Any kind of way you want it, he can give it to you. But it's been a challenge, Steve, recruiting big time wideouts. So was Michigan going to be able to command a presence in his space? That was the big question at the beginning of his recruitment. And here we are getting toward the end of his recruitment, and Michigan's still a presence in his race.
Yeah, I mean, I think play-wise, I don't know if you guys would agree here, but Board was kind of talking about it the last couple of days. I thought it was a good comparison. They kind of compared him a little bit to Jordan Chip from last cycle with a little bit more wiggle, a little bit more ability after the catch. I think Chip might have been just a little bit taller, but either way, I thought that comparison was pretty solid. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. Ron Bellamy has kind of it's a difficult job for him, with Michigan not having a prolific passing game to really actually put on film and say, so there's some faith here on the part of the wide receiver recruits. Johnson also is a lot like Andrew Marsh ended up last cycle, as he's kind of been that top guy the entire time. Right. I mean, he's the name I think Michigan we've most consistently said. I mean, yeah, there's other guys that are highly ranked that they're going after, but Johnson feels like the guy they've put in the most effort with on a day in and day out basis. So, yeah, I mean, these are the kind of receivers Michigan is going to want to continue to recruit. And I mean, again, we've seen it in pictures and stuff. I mean, the Bryce Underwood stuff's going to play a role with some of these guys too, obviously, right? I mean, the hype and the ability he has is going to be attractive to these guys. So that does give Michigan an in to say, listen, our passing game hasn't been as prolific as people may want it to have been, but we got this guy in the fold now, and you're going to watch this passing game start to excel over the next couple seasons.
Right. So you got to start at the beginning and put in that effort, show some commitment, show that actual vision. You got the quarterback, you got a coordinator with the passing game, and then invest the time with the young man and with his family. And in that case, the center of his life, his mom. And they join us right now as we bring Travis and Tiffany Johnson, his mom, to the stage as they join us as our guests.
What's up?
Here on the Recruiting Insider.
Yeah.
Travis and Tiffany, how you guys doing?
We are feeling great. How are you guys?
Glad that you could join us. And so I remember when you guys came in studio, it was a wish of mine to have you guys on set together because I could see the bond in the relationship and how much of a role that was playing in the recruiting process, your guidance of Travis along the way. Because another thing that's really unique is, Tiffany, you guys have been through this before, right? So that's another thing that's kind of helped you guys along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've consistently been this momager since spring of 2021, consistently with no breaks. Trav's process started, it really overlapped with my oldest sons, and his process started before my oldest totally ended. So yeah, no days off. Ball is
Yeah.
life, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of want to definitely go back over the entire journey, but let's start off first and talk about most recently, Travis, your latest visit to Michigan. I don't know how many times you've been to Michigan now. It seems like 4 or 5, but 4 times. But this latest Michigan visit that you just took, the official, just take us back through that and tell us what stood out to you the most about this last time up in Michigan.
What stood out was the people. They always treat me as a priority. Coach Bell, Coach Moore. And this time, just really getting to hang out with the players. You know, I was with Shamari. My host was Fred Moore, but I was mostly with Shamari, you know, another VA guy. Yeah, we just had a good time. It was always great getting to Michigan.
Yeah, so you talk about that relationship with Coach Bell. You know, obviously having that connection with your would-be position coach is vitally important. But you know, from a position and coaching perspective, but it feels like there's a personal connection there that's really, really strong too. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So take me into that, man. When did you really start to feel that? How soon did you start to feel that? How strong is that vibe between you two?
Last June 15th, he was probably like one of the first ones to call me, so I knew we was gonna have a real strong connection after that.
Okay. So now, you know, Tiffany, you said your oldest going through this process with him kind of paved the way
It did.
for you going through this process with Travis.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, when you look back on that, how were you able to take that experience and apply it here when it came to kind of really evaluating what coaches were being truthful and honest with you versus the coaches who are really kind of selling you a pipe dream, weren't really giving you the real, kind of separating the real from the fake.
Right. So I would say the main thing to me has been the consistency. And then also, I'm a very active listener. And it's like, okay, are they changing their delivery or their sales pitch? Or are they like building upon what they have said initially? And then also what I realized too is that schools that just come around, they eventually start to fade to black and they start to fade out. And so, you know, with both of my sons, that actually happened. And I truly thank God for that, because I don't want to waste our time or theirs, but I mean, especially ours, because, you know, this clock starts ticking and it really goes so fast. But I would say I'm a pretty good judge of character. And I mean, being a single mother of two sons and 2 black sons, you know, I want them. And I mean, at this point, I have seen all sides of college football, the sunshine, the rainbows, the dark days, the days where it's like, yeah, we're done with you and we don't care anything about your mental health, because it's a lot that comes with being an athlete this day and age, especially, you know, being the top of the top as a high school player and then players that are transitioning into college. I mean, again, it is a lot that comes with that. And I really, really want my sons, you know, with men that have integrity. And I don't think that's too much to ask this day and age, because they are transitioning. And I mean, Travis is 17 right now. He'll be 18 in December. You know, they're transitioning into the most important years of their lives that, you know, if they make one bad decision, that's their whole life. You know, so I'm looking at everything. I'm, of course, doing my due diligence and my research to ensure that I can sleep at night.
Right.
You know, that's super, super important to me. And then also too, like, I'm really big on family. The boys and I have an amazing village. You know, I have been so blessed and so fortunate from the time my sons were small and playing AAU travel basketball, just to have such amazing, genuine good people. Even before the offers started rolling in and the Twitter account, the X accounts, I don't even know if I can say Twitter anymore, just people that are really locked in and they really want to see my son succeed. And hey, they even call and check on me. Tiffany, are you resting? Are you taking care of yourself? I haven't seen you in the gym lately. What's going on? So, there's so many things. And I will tell you guys that, my checklist of things that I look for in coaches, of course, it's changed from, the last few months, just with everything that I endured with my oldest to with, Trav. And, it's changing. I mean, life is about change and, we have to be ready for it. So, we've been very fortunate that these schools that Trav is still taking into consideration, they have a very strong staff. I mean, Coach Bellamy, like Trav said, is probably one of the most genuine. Like when I first met him, like I still remember our first conversation, and it's kind of like the long lost family member that you guys just continue to build and you just truly pick up where you left off from the last time you talked and communicated. So that's just kind of where we are now. But I'm very thankful for the men that and the staff, that are in both of my sons' lives. And they're at Michigan, yeah.
It's funny you say that. There was another mom who said he was around the family and became so ingratiated they started calling him Uncle Ron in the family like that.
Yeah.
That's what Eleanor Marsh said. But there's a piece of this with Michigan, and Steve kind of pointed to it. Travis, when you look at what their offense has been, it's different from what they're saying the offense is going to be. Like they're selling you on their vision of the future.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you that the offense is going to have a prolific passing game in the future with what Coach Lindsey is putting in place, with what the quarterback of the future, Bryce Underwood, is going to bring to the table. So what do you think of that vision? What do you think of Coach Lindsey? What do you think of Bryce Underwood? What do you think of that piece of it?
I definitely see the vision, especially of being there from a spring practice and seeing them practice. So I definitely see the vision and I definitely love it. And definitely sitting down, with Coach Lindsey, of course, Coach Bellamy a couple of times, them showing me what it's going to be and what their vision is. It's definitely good looking.
Yeah, they've been very clear about their plan for Travis, how they're going to utilize him. Even seeing Bryce Underwood in action in person, it's just like, wait a minute, how old is he again? I see it like it's happening now. So yeah.
So now there's another piece of this because you have some obviously really good options close to home. That was one of the things that we talked about when you were here, Travis. You got Virginia Tech close to home. You got North Carolina close to home. How have you guys sort of processed the distance piece to this? I think I said this to you when you were here, Tiffany. Mamas don't like their babies to go far away from home, right? So how have you sort of started to, or not even started to, as the process has unfolded, how have you processed the idea of your baby maybe being far away from you as he goes off to college?
Oh, that's not an issue. My oldest was 6 hours away. Now he's 13 hours away. And I just plan and organize my life and get the mileage, accumulate the miles. So it's not a problem at all. My thing is with both of my sons, I told them, when you make your choices on where you would like to go, and they have to make their choices, because I don't ever want to come back on me like, Ma, you forced me to go here. Like if that was the case with my oldest, I would have been blocked and he would hate me right now. But again, and I told both of the boys, because even when I set foot on the campus of the undergraduate school that I elected to go to, I felt it. I wasn't necessarily able to put it into words, and I always am able to put words together to have conversations, but I felt it, and I knew that's where I, wanted to take on that next chapter in my journey. Now, with the boys, they know I'm gonna be there.
Mhm.
They know I'm gonna be there. So that's not an issue. And I mean, is that a factor for you? Are you
No, distance doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, no, it's not an issue.
Mhm. All right. So then as you sort of weigh the pros and the cons of each school, once you start to narrow it down, it's almost harder when it's fewer schools than when it's 50, right?
Mhm.
You know, so once you got 5 or 6 schools that you like, it's like they all have elements that are pretty similar. A lot of coaches that you like. Maybe the education is really similar. Maybe the NIL factors are all weighing pretty similarly. So when you get to the end of the road, if you will, how are you going to separate them at that point, Travis? What are going to be the most significant factors in your choice? You just announced that you're going to announce your decision on July 4th. So when you get to the nitty gritty, and it's like, you know, the last 3 or 4 schools or however many schools, how are you going to separate the wheat from the chaff? What are going to be the biggest factors that determine the school that you go to?
Definitely a winning organization. And one thing is, like, if football ended now, where would I want to be? That's another big thing. You know, with academics, all that, because football just doesn't last forever. So you got to have a good wherever I go to. That and just the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did you guys? You have a good feel for first of all, Coach Moore. We didn't talk about Coach Sharon Moore. So what's the vibe like with
The
Coach
vibe,
Moore?
vibe's always great. He's a young black head coach, so that's definitely you don't see that a lot nowadays. So
Yeah. Vibe. It's a great vibe. It's an awesome, sincere, genuine vibe. He's always welcoming and accommodating for us. And and I will tell you this, one of the things that I look for is, sometimes you guys ever had a conversation with somebody, you could tell it's like a total squirrel moment. They're just checked out all over the place. But when you have a conversation with Coach Moore, he is 1,000% locked in to you. And I respect that. And I love that. So, I mean, he's a great listener. Even as a mother, of course, I've shared, the things that I'm looking for, and, any question that I have, he always answers. So he's very patient. He's an excellent listener. And I can tell that, he wants our family to be good. So.
Yeah, so I'm curious now, Tiffany. Like I said, you guys are almost at the end of this part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
So you have basically navigated this successfully. I mean, Travis looks like you don't look as stressed as I see a lot of guys at this
Travis,
point. Right? You don't look as stressed as I see like a lot of dudes look at this point, right? So clearly you guys have done this right. And I'm curious what advice you would give a lot of parents out there who are maybe feeling stressed, Tiffany, or whose kids are feeling stressed, whether they be, whether they be a couple or whether they be a single parent trying to go through it, because you clearly you have it down. So how have you been able to do it? Who did you seek out? What help did you get? How have you been able to do what you've been able to do?
So from a spiritual perspective, because first of all, I'm a prayer. And, I used to write down my prayers and then go back, reread them and build on them. And we have been all over, and I'm going to get back to that real soon. But definitely pray, definitely talk to God, and the thing about me, I am very transparent and very honest. Don't get it twisted. I am definitely just like, right now. But, also too, I understand that, like, this journey is slowly coming to an end. These past 4 years and the blessings that God has really bestowed upon us, it's everything that we have all prayed for. I mean, I told both of my sons, y'all are going to get to school either academically or athletically. If it's athletically, you still got to have the academics. So figure it out, what you want to do. So, and, things have worked out for us in this manner. But to answer your question, like I said earlier, my advice for, parents and you know, athletes is to, first of all, one who wants you. That will never change. Always one who wants you. You know, also understand when things don't work out, they don't work out for a reason. And like I said, I am very spiritual. So I feel like when certain things don't work out, it is God protecting you from something. Like you have to trust that. Speaking of trust in the process. Everybody's process is so different and there is no black or white. Even experiences that our athletes have at these schools, they're so different. You know, like you even have to take what other people say sometimes, you know, with a grain of salt, because they'll be like, oh, well, this happened. And it's like, wait a minute, nah, that's not what the coach said or what other, you know, anyway. But again, just keep your blinders on, focus on you and yours, keep good, solid people around you. Like when people feel like you possibly have this about to happen or that about to happen. I think we've all seen the stories and the 30 for 30s and, you know, athletes start out like this and then they look around, they have nothing, not a pot, not a window, nothing, and nobody's there with them. So I am a mama bear, of course. I'm very protective of my boys, you know. But also, too, I have to just trust that I've raised them the right way with good morals and good values and to be good people. And ain't no God willing, I won't be anywhere. So I'll be right there with them, you know, is what I mean. But again, one who wants you, trust the process, do what works for you. I will share this. One of Trav's teammates, I remember he talked to me maybe last summer and he was like, for some reason, Trav's friends call me Tip, which is weird. That's what my high school friends call me. But anyway, one of his teammates, Oscar Smith, said, Tip, I need you to help me. And I'm like, okay, so my mind's going. I'm thinking of a game plan and some type of blueprint for him. And you know what? And I told him, I'm like, look, you keep doing what you've been doing. Work on that first offer. Once the first offer comes, the rest of them will start to slowly trickle in or quickly, however, but they will start to come. When I tell you he just committed last weekend. But again, what works for Travis isn't going to work for somebody else. And what worked for that young man, and I just talked to his mom yesterday because I had to call her and say congratulations and just give her some mama love, you know. Again, you just have to trust the process and do not compare yourself to somebody else. This is for the young people because I feel like, you know, and I'm so glad I did not grow up in a social media era because I probably would not be a teacher today. my mom and grandma raised me with some good morals and values and ethics. However, no. So, you know, they have a lot on them. But the reason why I even brought up social media is because they see all these other kids posting these offers and on these trips and everybody's like, well, what about me? What about me? You have to stay focused. You have to stay strong. Mental health is so important and you have to do what works for you. But then too, when you have a good, strong, supportive village around you, like, you know, they hold you up, they keep you encouraged, they keep you motivated. I'm sorry, I'm boring you. He hears this all the time. So I really hope that helps. Even when it comes down to schools, coaches, because everybody has a logo, everybody has a locker room, academics, tutors, weights, uniforms, helmets, everybody has all that stuff. You have to find the school where you feel like you are going to thrive at. Like you have to do what works for you. I know NIL is a huge factor and a huge piece, but I know me personally, I'm a teacher and I've never once been forced to go and get another job because it's not up to me. And I have been at everything for my children, unless it was an AAU tournament and one was playing one place and the other was playing another. And I was like, I got to go with the youngest. And because my oldest was good. But money is not the end all be all. Yeah, it makes life a little bit easier, but there's people out here that will sell their souls for $1. And I don't raise my children like that. And I don't want them to be in programs where we are selling souls and just not being people of good character behind getting a win. Like, so yeah. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers your question.
It answered everybody. I mean, you got what a couple thousand people in here that are captivated by the message.
Yeah.
So it is being very well received right now. Travis, I wanna close with a couple questions for you. First about Michigan specifically. Let me a very a very general question. What would you say um, when you look back all your experiences with Michigan? What would you say is the thing what would you say is the thing that you like the most about Michigan? And what would you say is still at this point the biggest question you have about Michigan as you look ahead to your decision?
What I like the most is they never change from coming down to the coaching staff to the guys I know on the team. No one's ever changed. They're always like treating me the same as a priority. And yeah, question it's just are they gonna pass the ball more? Like I guess we'll just see that in the season.
I
Yes,
got you.
yes,
I
sir.
got you. And then what's next between now and decision time? Uh, Visits. Is it just decision deliberation? I mean, what's between now and decision time?
Really just thinking of where I'm gonna go and just praying about it, talking to my family, my mom about it, and yeah, narrowing things down and stuff like that.
Okay. Do we know what schools is going to be between yet?
Not yet, no sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate you guys taking the time with us, sharing your journey with us. You made it by the studio. You give her your time, and I know that's precious because you get a million calls. so, so we appreciate you spending one of those calls with us tonight. Good luck the rest of the way, man. No matter where you end up, we appreciate you spending a little bit of your journey with us, man. So good luck.
appreciate you. Appreciate
Thank
y'all.
you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity and your time. We appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tiffany.
But,
Thanks,
can
Travis.
can we
Appreciate you.
say go blue? Go blue?
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Go
see
blue.
you just made the fans go crazy. So we
Woo!
appreciate you. All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate y'all.
Bye,
All right.
guys.
All right, Tiffany and Travis Johnson joining us on the Recruiting Insider. We hope you guys enjoyed that. We try to bring you guys a little something different, a little something special, from time to time. Try to excite the folks here on the Recruiting Insider. We know that we spent most of the spring with live in studio guests, and people like, hey, we want some episodes. We want some episodes. And it's hard to do everything all the time. So we said when we come back, we want to come back with some special things. We want to bring some more guests to the table. So, Mikhail Blade last week, contacted Tiffany, said, hey, Tiffany, can we get you and Trav on the show? She said, sure, we come on. And I thought she would be great because she is very insightful, very introspective, and can offer a lot in the way of not just advice to other parents, but perspective to fans of recruiting, whether he goes to Michigan or not. I think you can learn a lot from hearing her talk about how she's helped her son navigate the recruiting process. I mean, I don't know if you guys, no matter where he winds up, I think you are going to have a lot of people rooting for Travis Johnson. Just put it that way. How could you listen to her talk about Travis going through the recruiting process and listen to him talk about his process and not say, man, I hope he does well. I hope he kills it wherever he goes. You just root for him to be successful, whatever he decides to do.
I think it's always refreshing to come across parents like that during the recruiting process, right? And you can also tell that Travis, he doesn't take it for granted either. I think you guys know there's not every kid has that level of guidance and support when they're going through the recruiting process, right? And like she said, this is going to be the beginning of the most important years of his life, so it's a choice that you want to do everything you can to try to make it right. So yeah, obviously very, very impressive woman. And again, just that stability, that foundation going through something as stressful as the recruiting process means almost bar none certainty that wherever he's going to have some level of success, both on and off the field, wherever he ends up going. So, like I said, always nice to hear, and having gone through it before definitely helps. But I mean, I would have to even think that the recruiting process has changed so much in the last even 2 or 3 years at this point that it's probably been an even different process for Travis than it was for his older brother. But mom, is clearly a rock type figure in this situation, which, is going to give him the best opportunity to make the best decision.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck out to me was when I met her, she was talking about how she was not only had she learned from going through the process with her first son, but she didn't just rest on that. She was very active in seeking out advice. And one of the people that she talked to, a former guy from around here that I know, Jamal Adai, reaching out to Jamal and being like, hey, who do you know? Who can you recommend that can sort of advise us on certain things? That's the kind of sort of, researching every opportunity. Who can give me the kind of advice to put my son in the best position he can possibly be in to be successful? I think that is, if there's a piece of advice that you could glean from hearing her talk about Travis's journey or watching their process, that's one of the things that sticks out to me. Anyone she could take from a piece of advice, she took it and applied it. And so I think that's going to help him in his journey. And then the other thing that stuck out was when she was talking about, just as we get back to the Michigan piece of things, she was talking about how, man, just how personable and how connected they really felt with Ron Bellamy. That part really reminds me of the conversation with Eleanor Marsh, Brice. It sounds very, very similar. I don't know if it struck you like that, but it really struck me like that.
I think, the other thing with it too is just Michigan's approach to recruiting, right? You see these schools with the Lambos, with the animals, the goats, all these crazy things. And you look at Michigan's photos, and it's simply just them standing there with the coaches. Like, it's not fancy.
Right.
It's no hype, no
Right.
egos. It's just, here's the photo. Great. Like, you're going to be playing football here. You're not doing props runway. Like, this is not a fashion show. And I think, and the biggest takeaway for me from that is, like, you guys have been talking about, like, she can see the fake from the real, like, where they're just trying to, bedazzle a visit to make it look so much better than it is, when it's really just, here's the facilities, like she said, here's the locker room, here's this. It is what
So
it is.
you know what, man? I'm not going to even knock the light show. I mean, hey, the light show. But now I think the 12 Lamborghinis, I think that's, to me,
much? You think that's a little much?
Yeah. I see, like, the 12 Lamborghini thing. That, to me, I would look at that a certain kind of way. Like, okay, what are you trying to say about me that you think 12 Lamborghinis is really going to, like, if I saw that, I would think that's kind of making a kind of a character assessment of me, that you think 12 Lamborghinis are going to get me, right? But that's
maybe one.
Right,
maybe one
right. But
one.
I digress. But the light show thing, I can see how, people might think the light show thing was kind of cool. But it is a stark contrast how you see certain schools tweeting out, you walk into their visit, and man, it's like light shows and runways, and you walk up to Michigan visit, they like, just open, hey, what's up? I mean, it's totally different. It's no pomp and circumstance at all. It's just you walk in and they just dap you up. It's totally different. So, different approach is, very, very laid back, very relaxed. If you want the glitz and glamour, if that's the kind of thing that gets you, this is not the place that's going to lure you in. But if it's just about the substance of it, oh yeah, then they're going to get you. They're definitely going to get you. I think that's what we've seen so far. Steve, as Michael Terry just said, man, you nailed it, Mike. culture. If the culture part of it, if you're sold by that, then Michigan is going to get you. And I think that's what we see ringing through so far, Steve.
I think, I think the thing that about culture is, Tiffany talked about being able to see through stuff. Culture is one of those things I think that is it's going to end up speaking for itself at the end of the day. You can't really fake culture, right? If you're on campus for 2 days on an official visit, you see everything, you meet current players, you meet the coaches, all this stuff. Pretty hard, I feel like, to, have a phony culture. You know what I mean? Like it's hard. That's not something you can just kind of make up on the fly. Like that's something that's going to resonate after you get to understand a program, get to meet the people, get to know the people within the program more. So, and yeah, I mean, we've talked for how long, really Sharon trying to build off the culture that Jim built over the long term, and right. And I really, really strongly believe Jim would not it was clear Jim was in Sharon's corner to become the next head coach. I don't think that's the case at all. If he doesn't think he can continue that culture that, that it took a while to build coming off of the Rodriguez Hoke years.
Yeah. So let's talk about where we think things stand heading into Victor's weekend, right? So momentum, Michigan the ball has been rolling really well. So coming off of last week where we had Markel Blade coming back, and shout out to the Simeon crew as we had Markel Blade on last week, committed live on the show. Shout out to my man Levi Bradley, who a whole lot of love for Levi. And our Chi-Town family, or the land as he calls it, when it came time for Markel to commit, he said, we want to do it on the Michigan inside. It removed all the intrigue from where he was going to go. But he didn't even care. He didn't even care. Top 247 guy could have done it. He could have done it on a national show. He could have done it on ESPN. He called us up and said, no, we're going to do it on the Michigan Insider. And the dude, he just said, oh, yeah, that's why I said I want to go to Michigan. I said, young fella, I mean, you got a gym full of people, and you're not going to even give them I want to go to, I'm going to the university. Man, come on, man. You got to play it up. So, but he did it, and he's on his way to Michigan. And then the very next day, Alistair Vallejo. So that led into the weekend, fellas. That wound up being a really, really important weekend, because that's the weekend that Travis was on campus. You could call it the VA weekend, because another guy that you went to see that week, because when you went down through VA, Brice, that was the same week that I started out up in Baltimore. So I went up there to see Nick Abrams, right? Went up there to see, and then I went to see Kari Adams. Kari was a bit banged up, so he wound up coming on a visit, and then he came in studio, came on his visit to Michigan, came in studio, and then went over to Notre Dame. And it's interesting. I kind of think Notre Dame's trending there. So while I was up there, you were down in VA. And you went to see, I said, man, I think you need to go see Andre Clark. Right? And that wound up, I know at the time, not a lot of people were talking about how Michigan was looking in that race. But Brice, you went down there and you were like, Sam, Michigan is in pretty good shape here. And coming out the visit, feels like Michigan is in really good shape there. Really, really good shape.
Yeah, and for me, I hate to be that guy. I'm not a huge crystal ball guy anymore, just because of, I would say, NIL and just how things are so fluid. But if I would put in a pick, I know you guys have.
Yeah, I put in a crystal ball.
I'd put in one for Michigan. And I kind of felt that way coming out of that trip to go see him. He was very transparent with me he told me Michigan was one of his favorite schools, obviously one of his top schools. And a big reason why was two things. One, their vision, just how they see him fitting in the defense, kind of selling him an easy pitch. Sometimes recruiting, Sam, is pretty simple. You pitch like Travis Johnson, you're going to catch the ball from Bryce Underwood.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Clark, you could be Will Johnson. Like certain things, Alistair Vallejo, Mason Graham. Like sometimes it's simple, right? And so he liked that comparison. He likes seeing how Will performed under the lights and kind of how he was in the defense. And then the second thing, that a guy that maybe hasn't been talked about as much, but he's starting to become maybe their best recruiter, Lamar Morgan. Like that relationship flat out is maybe the strongest relationship he has of any guy recruiting him of any school. Like he spoke super highly of him. And it was one of those things where it's not just a football conversation. It was, how are you doing? How's school going? How's the family? Is checking in, making sure he's good, right? How was everything with your, chemistry class today? Like it's little things like that kind of for him just raised the bar, and it really, those little details, those small things like that separate sometimes. And like you always mention, you ask kids, it's like all these schools are the same, at least these five, right? What's gonna be those separating factors to help? And sometimes it's simple things like that, right? And I think with Lamar Morgan in this recruitment, he's done a great job. They've really cemented themselves as, in my opinion, as the top school to beat. I know he's had Kentucky, I think Georgia Tech, a couple other schools still in the mix, but he's making that commitment June 30th. He's coming off that OV to Michigan. I love where the Wolverines stand. And me personally too, looking at his game, he's a great guy. I think you could put him on island. I think you could actually move him around several spots, but Michigan likes him at primarily corner, and I think he's going to excel great there as well.
Yeah, Steve, that's how I look at it. Look, a crystal ball at the end of the day is an opinion. It's a projection. It's not a guarantee of what he's going to do. So, we got to wait to see what he's going to decide on the 30th. But, it's a lot about momentum, and Michigan coming off of that official. Yeah, man, I think they got a lot of momentum, and he can play nickel, he can play corner, and then it's the Lamar Morgan factor. You put all those things together, and that is why I think Michigan is leading, and it's so close to his decision. Maybe if we were farther away from a decision, I would feel, Steve, like, I don't know. But because we are so close to him making a decision, I'm feeling like, yeah, Michigan is the team to beat there, which is why I think they're gonna win that race. I mean, some team could maybe come back and get them, but right now I'm feeling pretty good about Michigan winding up being the winner for Andre Clark.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things with him. I do think he's a guy that, yeah, like you guys said, I think is versatile enough to where I think it'll be interesting to see how Michigan approaches the rest of their board at defensive back, because I think he's a guy who's good enough at corner and at safety where they may be able to still go after their, you know what I mean? Like they can pitch an open spot at both positions still, type deal. Really, Clark, yeah, one of the more under talked about top 150 kids, I kind of feel like, and not even on our end even, but just in general, I don't really feel like his recruitment has been talked about on the national level, like at all. I see the only other warm school on his profile is Kentucky. I don't see Michigan losing out to Kentucky right now. Just be frank, that there's a lot of talk that Kentucky's football NIL is not very strong right now. I think they just lost their top commitment today. So, really this has kind of been one where it's like, I'll bet if we looked back, like say he commits on June 30th and we ask him down the road, Michigan probably led for like a really long time in this one. It just didn't really kind of come out or whatever, right? Because the biggest thing after this last weekend, the predictions are in, was kind of like, who's the biggest competition right now for them? And like I said, besides Kentucky, I don't really know if there was any other school out there that has felt like they had a really great chance there. So interesting recruitment. Yeah, we did talk a lot. I mean, Virginia is going to be potentially very, very good to Michigan this cycle. Markel Dabney, who maybe we'll talk about him. Obviously, Savion Hyder was on campus, #1 running back in the country. So, I mean, we made a point earlier in the process to note that Virginia was going to be super important for Michigan, and it's that effort there looks like it's starting to pay dividends.
Yeah, didn't Kentucky lose? Didn't Vince finally leave Kentucky? Vince Morrow, he finally left.
Yeah, he went to Louisville.
Vince, you slide hog. Yeah, Vince is funny dude.
That's icing on the cake is to go to their bitter rival. That just sums it all. I think that sums it all up right there. So,
hey man, I'm looking at Michigan, Sam. I'm looking at Vince. You're not looking at Michigan. You're not looking at Michigan, Vince. Come on, man. I'm not putting that out there, Vince. You try to use me to get that checkup, Vince.
Yeah, I was like,
come on, man. Come on, man. I was born at night, not last night. So but he finally got that checkup. So
yeah, the old James Franklin to UFC every offseason for like 6 years there. Yeah, no, I mean it's the same thing.
He's a funny dude though. But Travis, so Travis coming off of that Michigan visit, I feel very much like I feel about Andre Clark. I feel like Ron Bellamy, when you look at the job he did recruiting Andrew Marsh, I feel like outside of the recruiting job for Bryce Underwood, it was the best recruiting job of the Michigan cycle. When you consider when Andrew Marsh committed, he didn't have Bryce Underwood committed. And the passing game last year obviously was abysmal. So you didn't have the benefit of big time passing stats. You didn't have the benefit of the #1 quarterback in the country. You didn't have the benefit of a veteran OC who had established big time passing attacks. You didn't have all of these feathers in your cap. Not to mention, you had to go down into the state of Texas to recruit a top 10 receiver, and you had to beat out Texas and A&M and all of these big time passing attacks who throw down obviously big time NIL on top of it, and you landed the dude. So that is big time recruiting work. You obviously are doing something really right on the relationship side of things. So the dude can recruit. Now you add to it the fact that you do have a 5-star quarterback and you do have a veteran OC who has established big time passing attacks and has shown that he can develop a quarterback. And now you have a head coach that has shown that, he can carry on a culture. Oh, by the way, team has shown some ups and downs, and they came back and whooped Ohio State again without a whole team, right? And then more of the team decided they were going to obviously sit out the bowl game. They still beat Bama with all their guys, right? So they can carry on the culture. So you've established that you have some things that you can recruit with, that you can carry on some success. You have a vision that you can really put forward and show some receivers that, hey, yeah, you can have some faith in this to recruit against those other teams that when they say, hey, Travis Johnson, hey, Zion Robinson, hey, Jaquaden Guilford, Michigan's selling you a vision. I'm selling you numbers. I got stats, real live production. Come over here. When Michigan says, hey, I got a real vision, you can actually have faith. Like, I think that's not just recruiting speak that he was giving us and that Tiffany was giving us. That's why I feel like, again, coming off the visit is what we say, out of region, you got to get him at least twice. You got to get him on campus at least twice. They've had him on campus 4 times. So relationship has been built, not just with the position coach, but with the head coach, with the OC now, with players on the team. You put all those factors in the hat, and we're close enough to the decision that I'm feeling like, yeah, man, I feel about Travis like I feel about Andre Clark. I think Michigan's the team to beat. I got a crystal ball in. I think Michigan is gonna get them. We gotta wait to see. Maybe some team beats them. Maybe they don't. Steve and Brice, we gotta wait to see. But I'm feeling pretty good right now. I mean, if he was gonna decide, November 4th, maybe I wouldn't. But July 4th, we got a couple weeks. And you got the official visit there. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, second straight cycle that Ron Bellamy looks like he's in position to grab his top guy at the receiver spot. Like we said earlier, there's still some other big names on the board, but Johnson has kind of been the number one guy on a consistent basis for them. So, and yeah, adds a little bit of versatility to the wide receiver room too. But again, yeah, kind of another one that, like, maybe looking back, we'll end up thinking that Michigan might have led here for quite a while, right? I think Penn State's kind of been hanging around. I think South Carolina was the other school for a while that was most consistently mentioned alongside Michigan, but it's been one of those recruitments where it's really for months it's been Michigan and X, right? Like Michigan's always mentioned in that top group, and it feels like the other schools have been sort of rotating in and out. So, yeah, and again, I mean, like, listening to Tiffany speak and knowing, Travis, it's has a very Michigan family feel. Like we talk about Michigan trying to recruit certain types of kid. This guy's a fit on and off the field, him personally and his family in general. So, really checks a lot of those boxes.
And he's the kind of dude they need, like that game changer, that game breaker on the outside, Brice. Not to mention the fact that after having Travis and Tiffany on the show, it's gonna break a whole fan base's heart if he doesn't come now. You gonna have a whole lot of people crying if he doesn't come now. That's gonna be the thing. Oh man, if Travis goes to like Virginia Tech now, oh man, you're gonna have a revolt in Ann Arbor. They're gonna be like, oh man, they're gonna blame us. Brice. Like, damn, why'd you have him on the show, Sam?
They ain't gonna blame us. Yeah, they will. They will.
They will.
Yeah, they will.
You had him on the show.
Any shot they can blame us. They're gonna blame us.
I get that. You had us thinking Michigan had a shot. And
you can't bring a kid on a show.
You had us liking this mom and build it up like Michigan had a real chance, and he went to Virginia Tech.
Hey, we don't ruin recruitments around here, right?
We sure don't.
So,
and nor do we promise you. Look, I'm not promising you.
Right.
Let me be clear. I am not promising anybody that Travis Johnson is coming to Michigan. I am making you no promises of that kind. So I'm making that clear into the camera right now. So don't come on this show thinking that. All we did was give you some insight into his recruitment. That is it. Now, you can be hopeful, and, you can say it would be great if he does come, but don't take this as a promise that he will come, because I can't offer you that. But definitely, Michigan is doing this due diligence, as are a number of other schools. So we'll see how it goes. But then you have some others that are on the horizon. Markel, Dabney, Michigan, doing a lot of work in the state. Richmond, Huguenot. My brother-in-law was a star. I got to shout him out, Marlon Briggs. Brother-in-law Marlon Briggs was a star at Huguenot back in the day. And so, they were balling out over at Michigan Stadium yesterday. They made it to the semis where they were knocked out by Harper Woods, where Dakota Grant did his thing, but young DJ Bidden. Remember the name, DeAndre Bidden. We were the first ones to introduce you to young DeAndre Bidden. The young fella is in 2028. He already runs a 10-6. Two-way player.
Yeesh.
Balling out. I mean, ball player. But anyway, Harper Woods knocks knocks Huguenot out of the tournament in the semis. But Markel Dabney, linebacker receiver, Steve. Linebacker receiver.
I think his film is. I think he's plays some running back too. On his film, there were I think a lot of people on like I always, the board has compared him to like maybe a little more of an athletic Michael Barrett. Which I think is a fascinating situation. I remember loving Michael Barrett's film out of high school. Remember he was a quarterback linebacker down in Georgia. So I got to say though, like the in-state crop of receivers coming up the next 2 cycles it's insane. Like Michigan has a real opportunity to solidify that position for a long time if they can keep the top talent in state, because there are some dudes coming up.
Can you imagine? So you want to dream a little dream? Let's dream a little dream. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Michigan is able to get Travis. All right. So they're able to get Travis. And let's say, for the sake of argument, they're able to get either Zion or Jaquaden Guilford. One of the two. And, who knows with Calvin? I mean, that's like Bryce Underwood down. I won't even mention that. Let's just stop it. Maybe they get Travis, and maybe they get one of Jaquaden Guilford or Zion Robinson. And then you come down the line with a Dakota Garant who is somewhere between like the high school version of like if you haven't seen him, he plays like an Anquan Bolden. I mean, just terrific route runner, makes plays in space, catches everything. Just a dynamic playmaker, super physical, football speed. I mean, he's that dude. And then the class behind him, DeAndre Bidden, just speed. And the thing, I've been talking to this kid since he was going from 8th grade to high school, which is crazy. But he was saying heading into this year, I got to show that I'm more than just a go ball guy, because he's always just been this fast dude. And he's showing now that he's more than just this go ball guy. And you're right, Steve. You look at this young crop of receivers, Trey Britton. You throw him in the mix, and you got to feel like he's just destined to come to me. That's like Bryce's guy, right? You feel like you get these locked in to Michigan. I mean, it'll feel like the days of, you remember the days of when it was like Braylon Edwards, Steve Breston, Jason Avant, Dave Terrell, Marquise Walker. It's like a run of receivers that Michigan used to have back in the day. As much as they ran the football, Steve and Brice, they had 1,000-yard pass catchers. They had them all the time.
Yeah, Mario Manningham,
Adrian
Arrington. I mean, there's I mean, that's why you even got Chad Willis at Orchard Lake St. Mary. I mean, he's got almost 25 offers. Yeah, Trey Britton just got Alabama, I think yesterday or the other day. You talk about Dakota. You have Mylan Griggs, 2028 at Cass Tech is another big timer.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't Michigan just offer a 27 from King? Yeah, Don Spillers offered him after his camp performance. Another 6'2" kid out of Detroit King. So, I mean, it's one of the issues Michigan's had at receiver always for the last like 5 or 6 cycles is there's not a lot of big name in-state. I think Nick Marsh was really the last big in-state name. He obviously ended up at Michigan State, right? But
don't get me started. Don't get me started.
So yeah, I mean, and then even close in the region. I mean, you got the Manchin Sales out of Indianapolis, Indiana. You got Quentin Burrell out of Mount Carmel in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if Ron plays
Quentin Burrell's sister plays soccer at Michigan. So
that's right. Yep. So if Ron plays his cards right, I mean, Michigan might not have to go far to fill their next 2 classes after this one at the receiver spot. So
yeah, you got the trigger man. You got the trigger man. And
Yep.
you might be able to start stacking trigger man because, I mean, think about this. I mean, you already started recruiting the next quarterbacks, right? And one of the next quarterbacks was just camping at Michigan again. And who might that next guy be? And I'm telling you, I mean, there are a number of candidates, but one of the guys that I'm really enamored with was a guy we spent time with on set. And you talk about just being really impressed with the young man. And I know you guys were, but we sat on set and we watched this dude make his mama cry. He sat on set talking about his mom. He made his mama cry in the back of the room, talking about how much he appreciated his mom. And it was one of the most precocious young men we've come across, Brice. And he was back on campus for camp earlier this week when we talking about Malachi Zeigler, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, it's ironic because we've had a lot of, we had Keaton Croucher in studio, a guy that's on Michigan's radar, Peter Borg. He just was at that same camp. But Malachi Zeigler, for me personally, if I had to pick a guy, I think I would put more eggs in one basket. That's the guy I would personally go for. Just because I think he's got that on-field but off-field type of stuff, right? It's something that when we sat there, you and me, we were just like, this kid is way beyond his years of maturity. Like this, he could run for and he reminded me of almost like, I remember Steve, he brings us up all the time, of like Grant Newsom. Like you just talk to him the recruiting process, you're like, you're a high schooler? This is not even the same ballpark, right? But on top of that, he's got a live arm. He's got great size. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's got actually a relationship. One thing that kind of stood out to me when he came by the studio was like, I actually know Brice.
Yeah.
Like Bryce Underwood. So it's not like if I come here, it's like this intimidation thing. It's like, no, I know Brice. I have a good relationship with him. If I were to learn, and that's one of the things when I talked to him after the camp, he was like, I actually took tips from Brice. Like I learned from him. It was nice working with him. And he really likes Coach Lindsey. That's a guy he started to form a strong relationship with. I think the biggest thing too, and I know Sam, you probably heard the same, he absolutely killed it. Like lights out, was fantastic. He won MVP at the camp. Yeah. This is a guy that Michigan, I think, they knew they were going to be impressed, but I think they were even like, okay, this was one of those performances, like, we're going to put more eggs in that basket. Like, he's got it. He's got that ick factor, right? He's got it all. And that's the thing, too, man. I think he's in Louisiana. I know a lot of fans are like, oh, gosh, he's probably going to stay at LSU. But he made it very clear that he's looking at all the schools, especially Michigan. And for him to come up a second time unofficially, and it speaks volumes. And for me, too, and the other thing with this was, he's like, I just want you to put this out there, too. Top 10, top 12. When I put that list out, Michigan 1,000% in it. 1,000%. Like, that's a school that I really like on and off the field. They have an offense that tends to be something I can envision myself in and thrive. And again, I just think we talk about kids, and we just had Travis's mom. You talking about Malachi? He's just a Michigan fit. You know what I mean? Like certain kids, you just see it, and you're like, you could see him at Michigan, and he's one of them.
I think you said something, a number of things that were profound there. I think first, with going back to Malachi, thing that stuck out to me when he talked about Brice was when he said, I went up to Brice and was like, okay, you're not better than me. He was like, he wanted to compete with Brice. Like, it was one thing, like, it was real cool, but then it was like competitive. Like, nah, I can't let him beat me. kind of thing. Like, yeah, he's older, he's really, really good. But then it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. You put your pants on one leg at a time, just like me. I'm super competitive. I'm not going to let this dude beat me, even though he's supposed to. Like, this dude is a couple years older than me. He's the number one quarterback in the country in his class. He's supposed to be better than me at this stage. But no, I can't let him beat me. You got to like that about this dude. Like, how you come across some kids who are really, really polished. And I'm not saying this is a criticism, but there's been a lot invested in the polish, to the point where they're more polished than they are a player, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know what I'm saying? You come across kids where they do an interview better than they play. And that's not this kid. Like, yeah, he's really super polished, but man, he can really, really play too. Like, there are other guys like Ryder Lyons is really good. Like, you got some really good play. I haven't seen a quarterback who I would put above him. There are other guys that are ranked higher. I get it. I understand the measure, but I'm talking about when you put all of the things together, the skill set and the intangibles, I haven't seen a guy that I would put above Malachi Zeigler. If I'm Michigan anyway. When you talk about the other thing that's profound that you said, and this is one thing that takes me back to Travis, when you talk about fit, you're recruiting families as much as you're recruiting kids, especially in this day and age where you see a whole lot of transferring going on. Part of player retention is you're connecting with a kid, you're connecting with a kid's family. Part of keeping them in your program is you have connections with the unit. That's how you keep it together. You're connect. Hey, can you call the kids? Can you call the kid's mom? Can you call the kid's dad? Can you call the kid's brother? Can you call their circle if there's an issue, right? Malachi Zeigler, you're definitely connecting with his circle already. That's not to say they're gonna get him, but man, the state of Louisiana is gonna hate Michigan if they get Bryce Underwood and Malachi Zeigler. Man.
Yeah.
Woo. Anyway, getting back to where we were with Markel Dabney, he's gonna be deciding between Michigan. He's committed to LSU, but
SMU.
Committed to SMU. Excuse me, but obviously seriously considering flipping to Michigan. He's visiting Pitt right now. Gonna make his final decision on Saturday. But then you also have Kenneth Goodwin, linebacker from California, who just visited, who's seemingly on the same timeline almost. You wonder how that's going to go. So Michigan kind of in the final stages with a few linebackers making decisions. So that's going to be really, really interesting to watch those timelines as they both seem to be converging at the same time, all the while. And then we can kind of close because we could be talking recruiting forever. But I want you guys to give us kind of like a brief synopsis preview of Victor's weekend as it is upon us. As this is a big weekend coming up for Michigan with some guys that are on the verge of making decisions themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'll let Steve kind of probably address the offensive line. But for me, I'm looking at obviously Calvin Russell, see if they can make any headway with that recruitment. But more so for me, the defensive line, right? You just picked up, like you said, Mikael Blade, Alistair Vallejo. You have Tariq Boney in the fold. But then you arguably get your next two top targets and maybe the gems, if you can land them, of Tyne Davis, right, who's down in Michigan and Alabama, and Michigan's getting the final crack at him. And then Carter Meadows, who's down to 4 from the DMV. And Michigan seems to be in a pretty good spot. I think Michigan's in a better spot than some other people feel. I know Penn State's right there. I think Ohio State. But I think if Michigan can kind of knock out of the park with both those trips, maybe they can land both. And you talk about just units. If they land those two, with what they already have in the fold, that might be one of the best defensive line classes in the nation, let alone future past cycles. Like, that would be insane. Having Carter Meadows, Tyne Davis, Mikhail Blade, Alistair Vallejo, Tariq Boney. And if you think about it too, that would basically mean Lou Esposito landed all his top targets.
Yeah,
like, every one. Like, he didn't miss one, which would be incredible, right? So I think that will be very interesting to see how those two visits go. And then obviously offensive line, I know, like I said, Steve probably knows more than me, but there's a lot of dominoes, and I feel like he wrote too, a lot of the same schools recruiting the same guys. So I'm interested to see kind of where certain things fall.
Yeah, I mean, this is by far the most important weekend for Grant Newsome. You have probably their 4 top-ish. I mean, they're still trying with Ojo. They're still kind of trying with Darius Gray out of Virginia. But between Kelvin Obot, Malaki Lee, Marky Walbridge, and Zaden Krempin, I mean, these are 4 guys Michigan wants really, really badly. And I think you could argue that they're at least in the top 3, if not top 2 for all 4 of these guys, right? So I've had crystal balls in for Walbridge and Malaki Lee for quite a while at this point. The Malaki Lee recruitment has become definitely competitive at the end. I mean, Texas made a move on his official visit. Yeah, I know. I mean, his recruit. It does the general feel there is it just kind of feels like wherever he's visited last starts to kind of feel good about where they stand. So I do think Michigan getting the last visit there is huge because he's been Grant Newsome's first stop for the last 3 evaluation periods, flying all the way out to Hawaii to begin the winter evaluation and the spring evaluation. I mean, Michigan could not do any more to make him feel like the top priority. Walbridge is ranked lower, but I think Michigan feels he's one of the top 5 or 6 tackles in the country. Kelvin Obot out of Idaho is a big time. He's a little bit more of a project, in my opinion, but a very, very, very high ceiling kid. I think Oregon and Utah are the other 2 programs there. And then Zaden Krempin is another one Michigan has been busting it with for a long time. Texas, LSU are the other 2 programs there. I think Michigan's squarely in that top 3. I think Texas will be tough in that one, but I mean, it's been funny to follow these because Texas is intertwined in a few of these at this point. I feel like it just kind of feels like Texas has told like 4 different guys that they're the number 1 tackle on their recruiting board. We'll see how that kind of plays out for them. But I'm actually curious to see if Michigan maybe calls that out a little bit this weekend because it definitely feels like they've been telling a few guys that Michigan really likes that they're their number 1 guy on the outside. So, but yeah, this is by far the biggest weekend for Grant Newsome because they definitely want a couple big time tackles in this class. And, you have 4 kids that you're probably in the top 2 for. You want to land at least a couple of those kids, right? I mean, there's some pressure there. So,
yeah, Malaki Lee, the investment, the relationship investment for Grant Newsome and Sharon Moore from them going out to Hawaii, the number of times. I mean, you think about Malaki Lee has been to Michigan more times than he's been to USC, right? I mean, that's crazy. To see another school come up and overtake them, I just, even with all the work that schools have done to catch up, I just would be surprised at this point. I think it's partially what you said, the last school that he's been to, he feels really good about, but I think it's that afterglow effect, and then it wears off, and then it comes back to who have you known the longest? Who do you feel the strongest about? And I think it comes back to Michigan. It's the first experience at the big house, coming to the camp experience. I mean, he's just had more experiences, longer experiences, better experiences with Michigan. I think that's going to be too tough for another team, another program to overcome. Kelvin Obot is going to be really interesting. The school I fear the most is Oregon, but I just feel like at some point they're going to beat Oregon for an Idaho guy, right? They weren't able to do it for Gatlin Bear. I'm trying to remember the guy, the cycle before, the tight end who was intimidated by the big house being that far away from home. What's the guy's name? Can't remember the dude, the cycle before. It'll come back to me, but there was another.
Sadiq?
Yeah, Kenyon Sadiq.
Kenyon
Yeah.
Sadiq,
Yeah. So, a couple of Idaho guys that it felt like Michigan was going to be able to leverage Colston, Loveland, that success into getting an Idaho guy, and they weren't able to do it. This might finally be the one that they do it with. I feel like, I think that him coming here and really seeing the offensive line development, the offensive line success. I think Grant has done a good job there. I obviously don't feel as good about him as I do Malachi, but that's maybe the one that I feel the most optimistic about after Malachi. I just don't think they can beat Texas for Zaden Krempin. Won't write them off, but I'm just not very optimistic about that. Titan Davis, though. Titan Davis. This is not if it was Nick Saban's Alabama, I'd say no. This is not Nick Saban's Alabama. Michigan is doing better with defensive linemen right now than Alabama. I'll say it again. Michigan is doing better with defensive linemen right now than Alabama. If you're a defensive lineman, you want to come play for Lou Esposito. You do. So I'm selling that. He can have an epic defensive line class. If he can close with Titan Davis and Carter Meadows, we have both of those guys in the studio together. It was unbelievable. That's what they're supposed to look like, right? You're right. You would have one of the most unbelievable defensive line classes in Michigan history, according to the rankings. I don't know if they would wind up performing that way, but on paper it would be that way, and he has a real shot at it. Titan, proximity wise, I think it fits. I think his mom really loves Lou. I think he really likes Lou. What does it boil down to at the end of the day? Could it be an NIL thing? That, to me, that's going to be the biggest question. I don't know that it is. I'm saying that's going to be a question. Is it an NIL thing? I don't know that it is. That's the question that I have at this point is it an NIL thing? And if it is, does Michigan decide that this is one of those guys that, okay, we're not going to lose him? Because you can't do that with every guy. So they would have to make a decision if it winds up being that that's the thing. Is this one of those guys that they're going to go all out for? We'll have to wait to see. Dorian Barney is kind of the last guy I want to talk about because Michigan's the last visit for Dorian Barney for a reason I've been saying. There was a lot of Penn State smoke. I think he set Michigan up as the last visit because I think heading into official visit season, he had Michigan as his favorite. I think some other schools have shot up in the official visit. Penn State, most notably, on the visits leading up to this. He's an Erie, Pennsylvania native. But I think Michigan has a really prime opportunity to shoot right back up to the top of the list. And he is going to be making his decision very soon after this official visit. So he is one to watch coming off of this official, especially if the Kari Adams recruitment is going like I think it's going. And I really feel like he's with that Notre Dame visit, I feel like he's trending Notre Dame unless things are changing here. In these hours and days, unless Michigan is making a surge or a push, I feel like Notre Dame is trending pretty strong there, which kind of shifts the recruiting pendulum more towards your Davon Benjamins. Of course, Dorian Barney, who's visiting this week. kind of shifts the pendulum more in those directions. So all the more reason to say with them being the last visit kind of makes that look even better in Michigan's direction. So much more over on the MichiganInsider.com. You want to be over there right now. A lot to come. So hope you enjoyed this episode of the Michigan Insider. There's going to be a lot to keep up with. If you haven't been keeping track, you are missing out because as much as we've covered here on the show, there's much more on the site. So go over on the MichiganInsider.com, get signed up. That way you can always be on top of what's happening in Michigan recruiting. Folks, hope you enjoyed this episode. Tell all your friends about it. And again, we had a little hiatus because we had all those studio guests, but we hope you forgive us for that absence because it was just because we were bringing you studio people. But now that we're back doing episodes, we're bringing you people live on the show. You forgive us? See, New Life said, great show. Yeah, see, so it sounds like you're forgiving us for the absence. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time on the next edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. We'll see you next time, folks.